Hello, welcome back. We're here for the NFL Super Bowl, breaking down the single game slate. Chiefs versus Niners this Sunday. Should be a very fun game to watch. And we got some real big prize pools to go after. So let's hope one of us is able to be the big winner. Now, let's before we get into the slate, as always, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to everything we do. All the props, all the DFS, you get it all. And let's get to the slate now. Should be a fun game. I'm pretty excited about the game, actually. I feel like a lot of the Super Bowls, I really am not that excited about the two teams. But there is the potential for a little bit of a shootout in this one, which makes it a little bit more fun to watch. Now we're going to break it down. We will go by position, touch on ownership, touch on it all, and we will start at the quarterback spot. I do want to start on DraftKings, as just the prize pools are a little bit bigger there. So we got Purdy, we got Mahomes, both very similarly owned. Niners are 2-point favorites, so I'm not really surprised that Purdy is a little bit higher owned. Both are in decent spots. I will bring the attention to the matchup tool, or the alert score is favoring Mahomes a little bit. We know Mahomes is a little bit more electric of a quarterback. My issue with Mahomes, and it's been this way the whole year, this offense is just running a little bit differently. They rely a little more on Pacheco, not so much on Mahomes himself. And with that, he has pretty average scores the entire year. Can he turn it up? Can he produce a big game? Absolutely. But that's just not what we've seen so far this year out of him. Is it going to change this week? I don't know. Maybe. I think the 49ers will have to get a big lead or a decent lead to pull the Chiefs out of, their kind of dump it off or let Isaiah Pacheco kind of run with it offense. And that's my issue with going with Mahomes. He just hasn't been producing like the Mahomes of old. And I do feel like his ownership may be a little inflated because, one, it's the Super Bowl. We may have some people that, don't play a ton of DFS playing, and that might just bring his ownership up a little higher than it normally would, a little artificially high. Now, we got Brock Purdy on the other side. Brock's been pretty much living in the mid-20s all season long, and there's no reason for that to stop in this game. One thing I will have to say is this Chiefs defense has been very solid. They're only averaging like 14 points a game in the playoffs, or allowing 14 points a game, something like that. Don't quote me exactly. I know it is a low number, around that 13-14 number. Just don't remember exactly what it was. But they've been extremely solid, extremely stingy. They haven't really let WR1s do much, but the rest of the weapons are able to. And the 49ers have so many weapons, they don't need their WR1. And likely, Snead is probably going to cover whoever is there. He's not going to shadow anybody. I don't think they care if he's on Debo or on Ayuk. The one thing I will say is Ayuk is the better man wide receiver, so maybe they do keep him with Ayuk. But regardless, I think Purdy is in a good spot and can absolutely get to this defense. He has a little upside with his legs. The big downside with Brock is CMC likely gets a touchdown, likely on the ground, and that takes away from Brock's upside. Pacheco can do that to Mahomes, but CMC is more automatic, so I bring it up here and not with on the other side. But Brock's a little cheaper, and he's shown more upside, so not totally surprised. The ownership is on his side. Now, moving it over to FanDuel with quarterbacks. Obviously, it's pretty similar situation. Brock, a little cheaper, a little higher owned. And then as far as the matchup spot, this is what's the real interesting thing here is the San Francisco matchup is just better than this KC one. KC really hasn't let quarterbacks do much all year round. So that is a little scary. They kept Lamar in check. They've kept very good quarterbacks and good offenses in check all year long. The one thing I would say about that is this isn't your normal offense. This 49ers Kyle Shanahan offense is just a different beast. So I think they are a little harder to scheme for than most teams, but just understand that KC defense is a little bit better than the 49ers defense. As far as the Mahomes matchup, we've seen several pretty big games from quarterbacks there. With that being said, outside of Burrow, everybody's been kept to mid-20s or lower. I really don't expect Mahomes to absolutely go nuts. Can he? Absolutely. It's Mahomes. He can do it all. All right, getting into running backs. High owned, we got Pacheco, we got CMC. Huge 4K difference in salary from these two. Now, CMC obviously has the giant projection, 24.84, 28-point consensus on DraftKings with the point per reception. He can just be used in so many facets. If you look, over the last 4 games, KC has been beat up through the air a little bit. 6.3 receptions, 43 receiving yards. We know CMC can do it. CMC absolutely thrives in that role. I think he can thrive in that role again, which obviously just raises that floor, for him. And he has a ceiling of mid-40s, mid-50s, so he can get it done in a lot of ways. Is he going to hit a ceiling this game? Probably not. Is he capable of? Yes. He can have that ceiling versus absolutely anybody. But using the running back to get to the Chiefs has been, a decent option. They were just okay, they were solid for, the season. Only 6th in rushing points, running back points, but they are now number 1. Over the last 4 weeks, that's going to pretty much only take, a few teams in there. But they are good against running back. CMC is a different beast. Can get to anybody. Isaiah Pacheco. So 49ers been solid against the run also, but have given up a little bit more and haven't given up a little bit more in the playoffs. Over the last 4 weeks, 95.5 rushing yards, 4 receptions, 28 yards, 0.5 touchdowns, 7th rank. So Pacheco does have the better matchup. One thing though is this Chiefs offense just isn't a juggernaut. That's just not who they are anymore. And if the 49ers are going to win this game, they're going to be putting up points, and it might pull Pacheco off of the field a little bit just because he isn't as dynamic in the passing game. Can he pass catch? Absolutely. He's just not amazing at it. I will also bring up the fact that Jerick McKinnon was putting in limited practice this week, so we're not totally sure what his situation is, but if he's healthy, it could eat into some of the work there. Not totally sure what's going on there. That is, we need to see more practice reports and more information coming, but that is the last news I saw from him. So I do like Pacheco. The Chiefs are going to lean on him. They've leaned in on him the back half of this season. He has good game after good game in the playoffs. I think this is what they're going to keep doing. 24 carries, 15, 24 carries. They're going to put it into his hands. Let his angry running style try and break down that D a little bit, and Mahomes will be there picking his spots. As far as the backups and guys to consider, I think Eli Mitchell is a very interesting one. If anything happens to Eli Mitchell, he then gets thrust into that role, and he's going to get a ton of carries. That is simply a punt because he very well could not play at all. He played a little bit last game, had 4 carries, had a touchdown, 0 carries versus Green Bay. And that's kind of the situation. It is the CMC show. CMC literally could have 100% of the snaps. But if he gets banged up a little bit, Eli Mitchell will then step in. It is just an injury situation. Kyle Juszczyk, I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers got a little fancy and tried to use him a little bit more. He is a good pass catcher. He's used all over the field. And we saw that versus Detroit last year. He had 2 receptions for 33 yards. He had a carry for 3 yards. He gets in the end zone, and, he's an optimal play. On the other side, Pacheco, CEH, we know both of them are going to be in. As far as RB3, if McKinnon's not in, it is P. Ryan, and I wouldn't expect anything out of him. CEH, look, it's the Super Bowl. They're not going to give CEH much. He could get a little bit work, but it's going to be what he's been doing this playoffs. 1 carry, 2 targets. 2 carries, 1 target. That's pretty much what I'd expect. He did get some work versus Miami, but it was a little bit of a blowout. So I wouldn't lean too much into that. It was also super cold temperatures. He's kind of a forgotten man unless Pacheco gets banged up, which he has had his foot injury. So if he does anything to that to make it worse, maybe that's a way that he gets in. And running back on FanDuel, 5,000 gap between CMC and Pacheco. CMC is the higher owned, as frankly he should be. He is just not all-around beast and should absolutely be in consideration to all. Pretty much all the breakdown I gave for DraftKings works here for FanDuel. The one thing I will say, though, is because the minimum is so much higher on FanDuel, the secondary running backs are just a lot harder to play on FanDuel. Juszczyk, 5,500, hard to play. It's touchdown or bust. There's no, he's 800, so if he catches 4 catches for 30 yards, maybe he's optimal. If he does that, he's not optimal on FanDuel. He has to get in the end zone to be usable, as is pretty much everybody else underneath Pacheco and CMC. Going into the matchup tool. CMC has the easier matchup. Pacheco and the 49ers have kept more running backs at bay than KC has. The one thing I will say about that, a lot of that is because the 49ers offense is so explosive and they get out to such big leads. If they're not able to get out to a big lead, I do believe that this will switch and that Pacheco actually has the better matchup. When guys have got a workload, they've been able to get to that San Francisco running defense a little bit, rushing defense. But that's the caveat. If they can't, if they can get the lead, that's why running backs have not done well for them. CMC, we don't even need to go matchup. He is amazing, and he's going to get his. All right, DraftKings wide receivers. Highest owned wide receiver is Rashee Rice. 63% owned, has a decent matchup. Wide receiver ones have just been meh versus the 49ers. He can absolutely do it. His targets the last few weeks, 7.8, but over the last 3 weeks, it's into the 8s, 8.3, I think it was over the last 3 weeks. And he's pretty much the first look. Him and Travis Kelce are the first look. One of the things I do have to bring up about this Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver core for this week is, though, Sky Moore, back and healthy. Kadarius Toney, back and healthy. We have to wait for them to see if they're on the active roster, but we've had it where weeks now this KC wide receiver core has been slimmed down a little bit. So the targets have been a little bit more, we've known where they're going a little bit more. That might not be the case this week with some of those guys coming back, getting into the lineup. Could once again be spread out a little bit more. So just be cautious of that. It does look like Rashee Rice has cemented himself as the best option in this wide receiver core. So I think he is safe. It's the ancillary pieces of that wide receiver core that I'm worried about. The MVS, the Justin Watson, Mecole Hardman, Richie James, all of their playing time could be different than what we've seen the last couple weeks. If Sky Moore's active, if Kadarius Toney is active, which both of them have been practicing, and there are hints that both of them will be playing. So watch that news as it comes on, Super Bowl Sunday, as it could change that wide receiver core quite a bit and let us have, some different pump plays at lower ownership. But these secondary, third, tertiary wide receiver options for the Chiefs are interesting. They're all cheap. If one gets in the end zone, one breaks a 50-yarder, they're going to be optimal. So don't just count them out. Rashee Rice absolutely is, the only one that you can really project points for. Everybody else is a maybe. And then on the 49ers side, look, it's the Ayuk and Debo show. That is how it is. That's how it is week in and week out. The one thing I do think that Debo is a little bit safer than Ayuk. However, Ayuk has a giant ceiling. When Ayuk gets it going, he gets 30 burgers, 7 for 114 and a touchdown, 5 for 156 and a touchdown, 6 for 148, 8 for 129 and 2. When he gets over like 80 yards, he really gets over 100. So if he's able to break down this KC defense and him and Purdy are able to get it to go together, get it going, he makes a great captain choice because he can have giant games where most of the time he's just going to be, mid-low teens. But he's absolutely interesting. And I would almost say you can make him either an MVP or not play him. Just because most of the time at his price, getting 15, 16 points won't do it. It will, obviously occasionally, but I would say most of the time that would not work. Then Debo, we know, has a giant ceiling. And it's kind of the same way with him too. Both these wide receivers are boom bust, where they go nuts or don't do much. The one thing with Debo, he's used much more ways. He's used in the running game, used in the passing game. So I like him too, but it is the same thing where it's usually one of them, not both of them. Occasionally it's both, but it's been once this whole year that it's been both. Juwan Jennings, Chris Conley, Ray, all are going to be on the field a little bit. Juwan Jennings will be on the field regularly. The thing here is he just doesn't get many targets. 2.8 targets per game. He could get one if he gets in the end zone. He's probably optimal, but it ends up being that. Even if he gets in the end zone, there's a chance that he's not optimal. However, I would assume if he does get in, he is optimal. And FanDuel wide receivers. So Debo, Ayuk, Rashee Rice are all very similarly priced. You likely want to have, Rice or Kelsey, Ayuk or Samuel on your teams. Some punt, maybe a running back and a quarterback. I would assume that's pretty much how everybody is going to be building. But everything I said about these three goes for the same on FanDuel. One thing is that price difference wise, Ayuk or Rice is just way cheaper on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel, thus not as high a ownership. Ayuk is getting a majority of the ownership, but I do think Debo and Rice are probably a little bit of safer plays, especially at lower ownership. And once again, with these KC secondary, tertiary options, be prepared to have a Sky Moore or a Kadarius Toney in the lineup. They could be there, and that will shake up the rest of that wide receiver core, absolutely. And maybe one of those guys go a little lower owned because they haven't been involved all playoffs, and people won't be thinking about them. So definitely something to keep in your mind. Now, we go to the matchups. Rashee Rice has the best matchup. Wide receiver ones have done okay versus the 49ers all year. Better than wide receiver twos or threes have done. So with that being said, 2 threes have, still done okay, not absolutely terrible. You go on to the San Francisco side. Wide receiver ones have had a real tough time all year. So Debo, Ayuk are kind of 1A, 1B. Debo is technically 1A, but I think there's more of a chance that Snead would be on Ayuk than on Samuel. I think while Samuel is a very productive wide receiver, he's not as good of a route runner. I think there's more reasons for Ayuk to be on Snead to be on Ayuk, but who knows how it breaks down. 49ers pass offense have a tough matchup. Ayuk or Samuel likely get there, just not totally sure which one it's going to be. Moving on to tight ends, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, both very, very good matchups. Kittle looks great. Travis Kelce looks great. Kittle going way higher owned than Travis Kelce on DraftKings, and that's due to almost a $4,000 difference in price. Their projections aren't that much different. I think Kittle is the safer option. With the KC wide receivers having a tough matchup, I think it makes sense for Kittle, CMC to get involved a little bit more in the passing game. And not surprised whatsoever that ownership is going to Kittle. On the KC side, Travis Kelce has been an absolute beast for the playoffs. 10 targets, 6 targets, 11 targets, 23 catches in 3 games. He has been looked at a ton and keeps getting it done. So it makes a lot of sense for you to want to use Travis Kelce. I think the high floor is there. My only issue is unless he gets in the end zone twice, I don't know if his ceiling is high enough to be a captain. I like him more just, in a slot role, a flex role, but he absolutely has the ability to get 2 touchdowns. So there is that. George Kittle, extremely interesting, has had some huge games and can get it done against anybody. And this is a defense that I think he could get to and might be schemed in a little bit, as they're going to need more weapons. This defense is solid. It's been solid, but I don't know if this defense can stop 3 or 4 very, very legit weapons. Noah Gray, Blake Bell, Charlie Warner are all kind of in play. When you get near the end zone, these tight ends have the ability to get in the end zone at any time. And Gray has been scripted into the game plan week in and week out. One thing I will say is over this last, 4-6 games or so, Gray has been used a little bit more. And I think that's somewhat to do with the limited wide receivers they've had. Now those wide receivers are getting a little more healthy. Maybe he's not involved quite as much. Tight ends on FanDuel, Kittle, 3K less than Kelsey and a little bit higher owned. I absolutely love Kittle at only 25%. Kelsey at 16% is great as well. Don't mind going to either of them. And matchup wise, look, 23rd and 22nd versus tight end. So very, very high likelihood that one of these tight ends are going to be in the optimal. And getting over to defense. So we got the Chiefs, 3,400. They are the better defense. Surprising that they are cheap. But they're going against the better offense, and that is where we have the tug. They're also underdogs. There is absolutely a chance that one of these defenses are optimal. All it takes is special teams return or a random pick six, fumble for a touchdown. And at super low ownerships, I think you got to consider either of these defense. They both have the ability to get it done, get after the quarterback, make some stuff happen. So I don't mind either of them and would absolutely consider them on both DraftKings and FanDuel. And then the kickers, any showdown game, they are absolutely in play, especially in a game that is so important as the Super Bowl. Teams are more likely to just take the points and move on than go for it on fourth down, I would say. So I think both kickers, both teams are absolutely in play, and just kind of pick your poison as far as which one you want. Both Ds are solid. Both Ds are good in the red zone. Chiefs are a little bit better, but the 49ers offense is a little bit better. So it can go really both ways. All in all, guys, I'm pretty excited about this game. Good luck. Hope you win some money. And let's go. Adios. Please like, comment, and subscribe.